Welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast, where we discuss all things empowering, encouraging and inspiring. My name is Yvonne Ellis. I'm an empowerment speaker, author, coach, trainer and founder of Yumi Empowerment, a company that facilitates the empowerment of people. I help people to make positive life change, live in their purpose and develop into their best version of self. I share stories, interviews, spiritual encouragement and actionable tips to empower, encourage and inspire you to live the life you want. So if you want to live the empowered life, join me each week on my podcast so we can take the journey together. Hello Empowered Lifers, welcome to episode 85 of Living the Empowered Life podcast. My name is Yvonne and I am the host of the podcast. And this podcast is about bringing you content that's empowering, encouraging and inspiring. If it is your first time listening in, I welcome you. I hope that you find this episode to be something of value to you. And to my continued listeners and supporters, thank you as always, guys, for listening into these episodes. Please be sure, everybody, to share these episodes with anybody that you know that needs a dose of the empowered life. It could be your friends, family, neighbours, colleagues, whoever you feel needs a dose of living the empowered life. Please share these episodes with them. Also as well, if you have not subscribed or pressed follow on the platform that you're listening to this podcast on, please be sure to do so, whether that is Google Podcasts, Spotify or Apple. Please hit the follow or subscribe button so that you don't miss the bi-weekly episodes. So before I get into the episode, guys, just a quick update. I've just been working really hard on contracts to do with my company, Yumi Empowerment. Got a few new contracts, which is great. Also as well, I've been doing some things in the background for my new business, which is my Passion Ideas Management Consultancy. I did a soft introduction to it on my Yumi Empowerment Instagram back in January. If you're not following me over there, it's YEME_empowerment. On my Instagram account, I share things that are empowering, encouraging and inspiring. But basically, I just shared a quick soft introduction to launch my third business, Passion Ideas Management. And over the last few weeks, I have had a couple of meetings with different places, actually, different institutions, organisations about exploring my business with their clients and with different people. So I will do an announcement about that in the next few weeks, and that's what I'm really excited about, because my business, Passion Idea Management, is another new beginning for me, and I'm looking forward to just getting it out there into the world. It's something that I have worked on for 2 years under my degree, and to be able to kind of put it into practice and launch it out to the world is something that's going to be really exciting. So I will definitely be giving you updates on that. I'm sorry I didn't share it before on the podcast that I had actually, launched a third business called Passion Ideas Management. I thought I did actually, but, I probably had to grieve brain at the time because, just my mind was just all over the place. But I will be sharing more details about that. And I will leave a link to both my Yumi Empowerment Instagram in the show notes, as well as my Passion Ideas Management Instagram. And I haven't put much on there at the moment, but in the next few weeks, I will start to be uploading different pieces of information around ideas on that platform. So guys, in today's episode 85, I want to talk to you about TME. Actually, it's probably like the same as TMI, too much information, but TME basically means too much education. Is there a thing as too much education? I want to talk about that in this episode, because we always hear all the time about how great education is, all the benefits of it. It can open new doors, going and accessing education later on in life, or doing new courses or getting a degree and all this different type of stuff. People are always so quick to talk about the benefits of formal education and doing courses and all that type of stuff. But we rarely hear much about the other side of having too much education. And it's something that I was thinking about after I completed my degree a few weeks ago. when I was sitting and reflecting on my own educational journey, and I was thinking about this question. So I want to talk about the other side to it, and hopefully, from this conversation, maybe there are some things that we can learn about the educational journey in general. So before I get into that, I want to share with you actually 3 quotes that I came across in regards to having too much education. So the first quote I want to share with you is by Thomas Sowell. He says, "Too much of what is called education is little more than an expensive isolation from reality." I suppose that could definitely be the case if you are spending all this money on education and you're not using it. The next quote is by somebody called Herbert Spencer, and he says, "The great aim of education is not knowledge but action." This is so true. You can have all the education in the world that you want, but if you are not using it, if you're not putting it into action, it really is going to be a useless exercise. And the last quote simply says, "My head is full." It has a subquote that says, "Over education and too much learning." I can definitely see how somebody's head could be full of education if they're not doing anything with it. So guys, as I said, the topic is about too much education, and I came across an article by an organisation called Elite Daily, where they're discussing actually about too much education and being too smart for your own good. So one of the things that they've said is thinking that all education has to be formal. And as I said, we always hear about the wonderful benefits of having formal education, about how it opens up career doors, can help you to get more pay, can open up opportunities. But, the danger of thinking that education has to be formal is that you then close the door on other types of education. Like for me, coming up out of the care system, a lot of my education came from opportunities, working in different environments, having different jobs. It can come through life experiences, it can come through skills, it can come through so many different things. So, I think a lot of people need to understand that the traditional path of education is not the only path where people can learn and get education from. Another valid point that the article makes is the curse of trying to figure it out before you get started. One of the things that they say happens when you have too much education. I have definitely seen this happen with people who have all the education that they have before they start something, but then they become really stuck because they don't know what to do with it. And this is where I think that experience and action comes into play, because if you are thinking, yes, I have to get this piece of education, this qualification, have this certification before I can even think about getting started, you will never get started. That's what I've found. You have to take action. And I think in taking action is when you get your qualification, or if you get a certification, you put it to good use straight away. A lot of people get stuck in the thing of, well, I've covered this and this in my education, in my, qualification journey, but I don't have that. Let me go back and do this course. And I think it's a little bit of a time waster. Another thing they mention in this article is that comparison to others becomes easier. So they say once you have certain knowledge, you become aware of how much you actually don't know, and how the danger in that is that it might lead you to go back and try and figure out things through formal education. Definitely, I have seen this happen with quite a few people. They think that getting another qualification is going to be the way to get through a certain door because other people have those qualifications and they've got through that door. Obviously, it's all about individual experience, individual circumstances. So I know this is going to sound weird, but after reflecting on my own journey and reading other people's journeys and reading articles from places like Elite Daily, I think there is a problem with too much education. And that sounds absolutely crazy, right? Because a lot of people, as I said in the beginning, put a lot of emphasis on having education for everything. What if I told you it is a problem if you never use it? What happens if you don't use those qualifications, those certifications that you've spent years and finances, trying to get? And I often wonder, and this is going to sound absolutely crazy, to have this kind of random thought, but I often wonder when I get emails from people, especially in certain work that I do within empowerment, contractual work with universities and different places, when I see some people with loads of letters under their name, they've got all these kind of doctorate and masters and all these other kind of letters after their name, I often wonder, if they ever get to use the qualifications that they strived so hard to get in order to get those letters. Now, my own educational journey has been up and down. Obviously, I've shared with you on this podcast how I left the care system at 17 years old with one A-star GCSE in English to my name. That is something that I've been able to use as I've got older, but I didn't leave the care system with any other GCSEs apart from that. The reason for that being, I was moved around from pillar to post. The educational facilities that they had within these homes or in the areas that I was placed weren't great at all. Also as well, I had my own things going on and I found it really hard to concentrate. And after leaving care at 17, I got most of my education through the jobs that I had. So I had jobs that were in customer service, in retail, and I learned lots of skills and experiences and knowledge that I have been able to put to good use. Then 2015 onwards, I went through a phase where I was addicted, I think, to doing courses. I think I felt a bit education starved. I don't know, maybe unsubconsciously my lack of education growing up in care played a part in this pursuit. Even though, God had showed me favour in all the jobs that I have had. I had natural ability to do things. I learned key skills to be able to attain good jobs. But I think I felt at the time I needed to pursue this avenue. And I can tell you some of the courses that I did. I did like a safeguarding course because at the time, in 2015, I was working still within the children's services. So I did a safeguarding course. I got my level 4 diploma with a distinction in drug and alcohol counselling. I have got my, level 3 award in education and training, and I've been using that ever since. I create workshops and deliver workshops, and I've been able to share my skills and knowledge and make money off doing training workshops and things like that. I got a level 4 diploma in event management, and I had been doing that for many years without a diploma. But again, after doing events for an organisation for many years, I felt maybe I should get this diploma. And just a side note there, I did the diploma and it didn't teach me anything that I wasn't doing already, but I paid for it and I did it and I completed it and I got a distinction in event management. I have done a certification in leadership and management through the Institute of Leadership and Management in Public Ministry and Women's Ministry Leadership. Obviously, I've got my empowerment coaching certification. I've got my diploma in freelance journalism, which I have been putting into good use recently. I will share more in some upcoming posts. There have been quite a few that I've done that I'm probably forgetting, but obviously recently getting my master's degree in innovation management and entrepreneurship. So I've spent a good few years just getting qualifications and going back into education. And one of the things I realised some years ago is that I wasn't really making good use of the qualifications that I obtained. Some of them I had, as I mentioned, the event management, the training, the women's leadership and ministry one, I've made good use of that through Daughter Rise. But some of them I wasn't using at all, but I just continued to do, courses. And this caused me to have a period of deep reflection and evaluation about how I was using them. And for the ones I wasn't using, why wasn't I using them? Because, it takes a lot of time and effort and money to get structured education. And if you are pursuing structured education, you need to know why you're doing it. What is going to be the outcome of you doing it? I had to sit down, as I said, and reflect and think about why I was doing it. And I realised it wasn't even because, I thought, okay, the jobs or the things I was doing, I needed to have these qualifications. I was doing it more out of a place of I thought that I should have had these qualifications. As I said, that insecurity that I felt from coming out of the care system and not having, a real structured foundation of education. So some things I learned out of that experience of too much education as well is that you have to have the right motivations for doing education. And also as well, you need to have a plan and an action plan for how you're going to use those things as well. So I'm just going to share with you some things to help you if you feel that you have too much education, to help you maybe to dust off some of the qualifications that you've had that you did and you've not done anything with. I would first of all just say to you to write a list of your qualifications and specifically focus on what things have you not used and think about why you've not used them. And also ask yourself the question, is there a way you can make good use of it now? We know in time, we know with life, motivations and inspirations change. But this is a good place to start, writing down what you have done educationally and think about if you can use them now. Think about specifically in terms of your goals and your dreams. Could you use your educational achievements, the ones that you've put to the side, to propel your dreams now as a tool to help you to achieve your goals? Also as well, I think when you're thinking about education, if you are choosing to go back and do education and you don't want it to become a thing of TME, where you have too much education or you're just collecting certificates and qualifications, I think one of the things that can help you to do that is to think about your acquirement of education as a self-investment and personal development tool. So whatever it is you're doing, is it adding to your value? Because if you're going back into education, it should be something that's going to be an investment towards your future. My master's degree for me and all the qualifications I've had that are not degrees are things that are helping me to develop towards my future goals. These are things that are going to help me to bring in income in time. These are things that are going to expand my businesses. You need to think about that. It should be an asset to you living an empowered life. These educational achievements or educational requirements that you have should be investments towards your future. It should help with your self-development and personal development. When you reframe your mindset this way to think about education as things that are going to be investments in your future and in your life and in your goals, it helps you to see them as things to use rather than things to collect. And the Bible scripture I want to share with you today comes from Isaiah 6:9, and it really reminded me of this topic that I'm talking to you today about in this podcast episode. It says, "Go and tell his people, be ever hearing but never understanding, be ever seeing but never perceiving." And I think Isaiah was talking to the people of that time, the message that the Lord had given him. But basically it reminded me of what we were talking about in the sense of you can have loads of education but never using it. You could be acquiring education and never applying it. So that is not the goal of getting extra education in this formal sense. It is about using formal education. If you really feel that's the road that you want to go down, it really should be in line with what I've just said about investing in yourself, investing in your future, self-development, enhancing your opportunities, maybe increasing, pay in your certain field. It has to be something that will be a benefit to you in the long run. You don't want to just be collecting qualifications. You don't want to just be doing things for the sake of doing them. As they always say, too much of something is not a good thing. And I think when you have too much education and you're not acting on it and you're not using it, it's definitely a negative thing. And I just want to encourage you today, if you're somebody who has been told that formal structural education is the only way you will get something, maybe in certain fields, maybe it is a pathway you need to take. But if you've always been told that you must have formal education for the things that you are doing to be validated, I want to share with you that, that is not always the case. And I want to encourage you not to be downhearted if people have been telling you that or been playing down the things that you've achieved, because I went through that so many times. And I can give you an example of this. Back in 2017 and even before that, I had wrote about my experience of going through childhood sexual abuse. So I shared a personal account of my experience and how I got through it. I then went on to write another book called Choose Life to equip people with the tools and resources to help them to find their voice in the aftermath of going through sexual abuse. I used my training skills to help me to do that. I used my writing skills, my personal experiences to help me to do that. I then went on to be selected to do a TEDx talk in 2017, which has now nearly 50,000 views on YouTube. As an expert, I was selected as an expert in this area of empowering survivors of childhood sexual abuse. I set up an organisation which is nearly 13 years old. And even with all that experience, even with all the things that I achieved, a lot of people in professional kind of arenas would say to me things like, oh, well, you don't have the qualification, you don't have this qualification. Yet I had so much vast experience. I had established myself as an expert in this subject. Not only had I been through it, but I was also empowering people through it. I also got feedback from people who had gone through it that said how I helped them. And yet none of that was good enough. And I'm telling you this because maybe you're somebody out there who has achieved so much without formal education, and yet people still downplay your achievements and say, well, yeah, that's all good and great, but you don't have this qualification, you don't have that qualification. You know, don't be downhearted by people's comments. Know the things that you have achieved. If you feel that you need to get a formal piece of education to help you in the field of the things that you're doing to become an expert or to give you validation or validate your efforts, that's one thing. But don't be doing it for other people. Because as I said in that article from Elite Daily at the beginning, formal education isn't everything. Education comes through experiences, education comes through life, education comes through, learning from things, education comes through acquiring skills. There is so much that you can get from not going down the traditional educational route, where you get it through other means. But do think about the things that you've already achieved that you haven't been putting into use, and think about how you can put them into use. So that is it for today's episode, guys. As usual, I'll do a post notification on my social media. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, also on Facebook, and I do upload this episode onto my YouTube channel, Living the Empowered Life. And the question is, do you have TME, too much education? And if so, how are you going to use it? If you have too much education, what things are you going to do now to start to use it? How are you going to put your knowledge, information, expertise, all of that stuff into practice? I would love to know. So that is it, guys, for this episode. Until the next one, take care.